I know we went through several companies, and I'll use a term that from my retail experience, is a transactional partnership is really what a lot of those companies felt like. And when we got on that call with JWB, it was more of like, yeah, we were interviewing them to see what their company was about, what their investment philosophy was, management style. But at the same time, we really, for the first time out of the companies we spoke to, got that feeling of they weren't just looking for us to buy a property and continue to buy properties. They really were interested in what our investment goals were, what our passive income goal was with this property, how long we were going to hold on to it. And it really gave us that feeling of a true partnership versus just a transactional based partnership.
That's really interesting, Scott, because what you're saying there matters so much to us, right? We really want to be able to, have people trust us enough to give us their money, to have us hold on to it for 10 or 20 or longer years, and then to give a whole lot more back. And of course, to give back along the way too, in terms of rental income. But if we're going to do that, we can't be transactional. We'll never achieve our collective goals to do that. I'm really curious what it's like being on the phone with other companies, because all I see is what it's like to be on the phone with JWB. Could you talk me through what a normal call is like with some of the other companies? Maybe your first call, or do you have multiple calls, or when do you start to talk about properties? Is it, I would imagine it's really early on with other companies.
Yeah, so there's a couple companies that in particular that they actually pushed us their property list before even our first call to kind of figure out what our goals were, what we were looking to do. And then on that first call, it was like, hey, what property are you interested in? Others, they talked through kind of what our goals were a little bit, but not to the point of like, hey, what's your goal to do with this money once this property's paid off, or are you looking to hold it to paid off? And then like theirs was more the third call, I guess it was more of, hey, okay, first conversation. After the conversation, they sent us their available property list. But I think if I remember right, with JWB, it was the third or maybe fourth call before we even started talking through like what properties are available to even start investing in. So really that of vetting out, making sure that one thing JWB did great was making sure that we felt comfortable with their process and kind of laying out and really doing a great job of walking us through what that looked like even post-purchase before we even got into looking at what properties were available for investment.
That's really interesting to me because I also have no scope, right? Like I have no understanding of anything else because I'm so indoctrinated into here. But you had researched Bigger Pockets, right? Like you said, you listened to Bigger Pockets for like 3 years and you were, already thinking about rental income property. Did you know that was coming? Like, did you have kind of like an expectation of being like, yeah, I should be looking at properties right now because that's what I'm buying. Why would I not look at it? Like, how did it land on you originally when you were, like, I imagine JWB wasn't the first company you spoke to based on kind of how you're describing it, but did it psychologically land correctly to you that you should be looking at properties first? And then when you didn't, were you like, what the heck is going on here? Or had you already educated yourself that that's what you should be doing?
Before I set up any calls with the company, I went on the Bigger Pockets forums to kind of see what was available in those markets, what type of rental properties, whether it was single family condos that these companies played in. And then from there, really it didn't catch me off guard that they didn't present their products at first, because you're coming to, especially with the companies that didn't give you your property list up first, because you're coming to them knowing that you're wanting to invest in real estate investment. It's really at that point vetting out that partnership and vetting out like, hey, do I work well? Do I connect with this company, with the people of this company that I'm going to be working with? Because it is a big trust to say, all right, yep, here's an investment in a property sight unseen. I'm trusting you to manage it. In JWB case, to build it. And that was the other part that really enticed us with the Jacksonville market, was the new build construction, because it took a lot more of that risk off the plate.
Yeah, I'm always really just intrigued as to what people are thinking in relation to the JWB experience versus others. And, one thing that you've mentioned here a few different times, and I think it relates to how successful you are at Lowe's, is that I can really tell that the team, the partnership is the most important thing for you. You know, I talk to people and I tell them that the most important decision to make is the team. Then when you're deciding on rental properties, then you got to make sure you're investing in the right market. And if you do those two things, then the property more or less is a widget, right? The property can be replaced. That's the third and the least most important part of the decision. But that surprises some people. A lot of people who come into rental properties are so focused on the property. Can you expand a little bit more on that, Scott, about why the team is the most important thing for you and why that is going to, you know, give you the success that you're hoping for a decade down the road or 20 years down the road?
Yeah, I think coming in from the retail side, it's nothing like anything you go after in retail, whether it's new products coming into a store, that's not going to be accomplished with an individual ability. So you're going to need that team around you to really, A, help you land on the right decision, and then B, make sure that that decision, whatever decision you land on, is executed successfully. So that was really the part that we were looking for, especially being so far away. And the second part that really kind of struck us with the Jacksonville market that sold us is I saw a lot in the Jacksonville market that reminded me of Charlotte and the market that I really was interested in here. And it really just, I mean, in my opinion, Jacksonville's just 4 or 5 years behind the Charlotte market. Yeah. So that opportunity to see where Charlotte market had went to, and know that I had the opportunity to get into the Jacksonville market and hopefully see the appreciation that we've seen here in Charlotte was another exciting opportunity.